It's Wednesday, October 14. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. The government will soon be updating legislation regarding firearms. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang gave that commitment as he addressed the House of Representatives on Tuesday. Jamaica has a homicide rate running over 1,000 annually. The majority of those deaths are caused by guns.
I hope to bring to the House before the year is out, the calendar year, a Firearms Act. But firearms has been the main instrument of death in the country for near 40 years. We don't have a Firearms Act. If we take the issue of gangs, they have been the cause of lawlessness, murder and homicides and organized crime for some 42 years. The Anti-Gang Act is only about 4 years old. I agree, 5 years. So we have been very tardy in doing the things that we required and so fight crime, in providing the police with the tools required legislatively and physically and in terms of numbers and training.
Dr. Chang was debating the extension of 4 zones of special operations, or ZOZOs, in Mount Sale and St. James, Denham Town and Greenwich Town in Kingston, and August Town in St. Andrew. In the end, the Parliament voted for their continuation. In related news, the public will now be able to access official crime statistics. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang confirmed this in Parliament on Tuesday.
We have given a commitment to publish. We wish to publish crime statistics, but they're a little bit crude when they're being published. We have set about to do it and to put it on the website of the police, Jamaica Consular Force, and quite frankly, it started today.
The move was welcomed by opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips.
Not because we are seeking to sensationalize, but I think we all recognize that public discussion, public knowledge about the nature of the issues would be of assistance in helping the society chart a course forward that would enable us to confront the challenge effectively, the challenge of rising criminality, and mobilize public support behind a national position.
These statistics can be reviewed at jcf.gov.jm/statistics. That's jcf.gov.jm/statistics. And we now get the latest COVID-19 update from the health authorities.
The island recorded 5 COVID-19 related deaths over the last 24 hours, bringing the overall tally to 151. 2 of the deceased were from Westmoreland, 2 from St. Catherine, and 1 from Kingston and St. Andrew. Their ages range from 53 to 75 years. 79 new cases were reported on Tuesday, bringing the overall total to 7,989. According to the Health and Wellness Ministry, 124 recoveries were also recorded, bringing the number of recovered cases to 3,431. The number of active cases now stand at 4,304. At this time, there are 32 moderately ill and 22 critically ill patients. 188 persons are currently hospitalized. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Parents are being urged to make use of the helplines for support from the National Parenting Support Commission. 36 helplines were launched in April 2020 in collaboration with the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, Victoria Mutual Foundation, and Fight for Peace. Parish helplines can be accessed via the link now on your screen. The link will also be placed in the description box on our social media platforms at pbcjamaica.org. Approximately 800 trainee teachers will not be able to undergo teaching practice due to the delay in the resumption of face-to-face schooling. The move is due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the spike in cases across the island. Dean of the Teachers College of Jamaica, Dr. Garth Anderson, says school administrators have rescheduled teaching practice exercises with the hope they will resume in the next school term. October 20 is being recognized as World Statistics Day under the theme Connecting the World with Data We Can Trust. Director General at the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, Carol Coy, says statistics have become very important in recent times as they relate to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We have more in this report from Simone Absalom.
World Statistics Day is a United Nations event that is celebrated every 5 years. This is the third round. Head of Jamaica's Statistical Institute, Carol Coy, says the celebration is to highlight the importance of statistics in development, especially sustainable development.
So as governments balance between lives and livelihood, and they make these decisions and measures, how does that affect the economic and social life of persons? So that's one of the important facets that we have seen for statistics in recent years.
She says that statistics is used as an instrument to project and measure sustainable development goals. They address global challenges, including poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace, and justice.
We have to produce statistics that is internationally comparable, statistics that follow international methodologies, international concepts, classifications, because this is what ensures that the statistics is comparable and the statistics is of a specific quality. And we release our statistics as soon as they are finished. We do not have to get sign-off from any, say, permanent secretary or any political person. Because of that, we have what we call an advanced release calendar on our website. What this does, it tells our stakeholders that these products are coming out on a particular day. And so all our stakeholders know, for example, that the Consumer Price Index is released on the 15th of every month. And so Statin is held accountable for that. On our website also, we have what we call the metadata of our statistics. And what this does, it tells you exactly how we produce our statistics. So if there are shortcomings in the production of the statistics, we also state that.
Ms. Coy says the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the need to know, the need to collect, organize, analyze, interpret, and present data to help resolve scientific, industrial, or social problems.
Because there is the health realm where we need to understand what is happening to persons when they contract virus, but we also need to understand what is happening in the economic, social, and environment sphere of countries.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom.
Mental health is a priority of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Portfolio Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says mental health interventions have become even more significant due to issues that have surfaced or might occur as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says a lot of Jamaicans are struggling with elevated levels of anxiety, stress, and depression. His comments were made at the latest COVID-19 virtual conversations. It preceded World Mental Health Day, observed on October 10.
What is also emerging from our mental health teams on the ground is that conditions such as acute psychosis, adjustment disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, and protracted grief reactions appear to be on the rise. In addition, we have detected, courtesy of the platform afforded by the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the mental health page, which I would like to promote, www.moh.gov.jm/mental health stories, that a number of Jamaicans are actually struggling with depression during this period.
He says the ministry has committed $20 million towards implementation of mental health strategies. In fact, the Health Ministry recently launched its COVID-19 Mental Health Response Program, which will provide community-based support through volunteers, professionals, and ease of access to mental health services.
They will be trained to help to create a sense of belonging and to provide some comfort to those who are in their communities who are suffering because of the isolation associated with the COVID restrictions. We will also have a mass media campaign to promote mental health and the prevention of mental illness. So the program will focus on increasing the skill sets of our healthcare workers and community volunteers. So our psychological first aid will be boosted, both to our mental health aides, but also to our community health aides, who we are recruiting and expanding currently.
Dr. Tufton says the intervention is particularly important for elderly persons, many of whom now spend most of their time indoors, given their vulnerability to COVID-19, and are struggling with feelings of isolation.
So our older persons are taking the COVID-19 threat seriously, based on this study, and are doing what is required to stay safe. Approximately a fifth think the guidelines, however, are difficult to do and impossible to continue with for a prolonged period, while some 34% report facing a lack of loneliness, feeling left out, feeling isolated. It is the lack of companionship and the feeling of isolation that we're seeking to counter, at least in part through the work of this mental health program that we're putting in place.
At the same time, he says children and youth are also facing psychosocial challenges due to the pandemic, which has kept them away from friends while moving them into a world where teaching and learning have to take place online.
Preliminary findings from a recent study by public health and aging expert, Professor Eldemar Shearer, provides us with some very important insight. Professor Shearer, who was on our COVID conversations last week when we were live from Mandeville, did a sample size assessment of some 228 persons aged 65 years and older. And the majority of them, with the majority of them being female, some 74%. Among the things she found, which confirms our concern and our conclusion, is that 89% of our older persons are leaving home less than before the first stay-at-home order in March. 22% reported canceling a doctor's visit or other healthcare appointments. Only 20% reported in-person visit with relatives, which means that even their loved ones are no longer visiting them, and out of a genuine fear that they may be transporting the virus to them in their setting. But the inadvertent consequence of not visiting is the loneliness, the depression, and other negative impact. And 98% of that sample said they stayed in touch via the phone primarily.
Persons who require mental health support are urged to call the Mental Health Suicide Prevention Helpline at 888-NEW-LIFE. That's 888-639-5433. They're also encouraged to share their story via the Ministry of Health's page, www.moh.gov.jm/mental-health. World Mental Health Day was observed under the theme Mental Health for All, Greater Investment, Greater Access. Simone Absalom for the news on PBCJ.
Historic. That's how Prime Minister Andrew Holness has described Tuesday's launch of Jamaica National Bank in the United Kingdom.
Today, history is being created as the Jamaica National Group formally launches JN Bank in the United Kingdom. Since its inception in 1874, JN has been providing exemplary service to the people of Jamaica and the Jamaican diaspora through the provision of financial and other services. Jamaica and the UK share historical ties, with hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans establishing firm root, but with the long-term objective of maintaining close links to Jamaica, ultimately to return home.
32 years ago, JN established a representative office and a remittance service in the United Kingdom to bridge the gap between Jamaica and the diaspora. However, in recent years, the Caribbean, along with parts of Africa, Eastern Europe, The Middle East and the South Pacific have been targeted for de-risking. De-risking refers to the restriction of correspondent banking relationships or business services from major global banks to certain jurisdictions due to concerns over money laundering or potential involvement in the financing of terrorist activities. Mr. Holness says JN's accomplishment is critical given this backdrop.
In recent years, Jamaica and the Caribbean have faced a formidable challenge with the de-risking of financial institutions in the region. Several banks have lost their correspondent banking relations, resulting in many UK residents of Jamaican heritage being unable to access banking services. In response, Jamaica National took the bold decision to apply for a commercial banking license in the UK. I am proud of Jamaica National's decision to embark on this initiative to address a pressing need of our diaspora and people in the UK. As the first Caribbean-owned bank in the UK, JN Bank will not only provide financial services to strengthen the achievements of our people in Britain, but will work closely with communities to build them and to create greater opportunities for our people of Caribbean heritage to prosper and realize their best potential.
Prime Minister Holness was speaking via video presentation at the launch.
The government of Jamaica has been a supporter of this initiative and acknowledges the tremendous work undertaken to bring this bank to fruition. This is truly a great example of a Jamaican company wholly owned by its members, extending itself beyond our borders to support not only our Jamaicans, but the people of the Caribbean region. Jamaica National continues to fly the Jamaican flag high. I am pleased to officially launch JN Bank in the UK and wish you every success.
As COVID-19 cases continue to rise, the associated fears have been impacting global oil prices. Business Report host Gabriel Thompson gives us the details on dropping oil prices and other market details.
In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 652 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall, market activity resulted from trading in 79 stocks, of which 31 advanced, 39 declined, and 9 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 14 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Barita Investments Limited, and Caribbean Cream Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services, Berger Paints Jamaica, and Blue Par Group Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares and Elite Diagnostic Limited. Carreras Limited was the volume leader with 4.8 million units, followed by Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with 3.2 million units and QWI Investments Limited with 2.1 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Tuesday, October 13, ended trading at $145.37. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $111.74. The pound sterling traded for $191.75, and the euro ended trading at $175.23. Oil prices edged down on Wednesday under pressure from growing concerns that a recovery in fuel demand will be stalled by soaring coronavirus cases around the world. Brent crude futures fell 6 cents to settle at $42.39 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 5 cents to $40.15 a barrel. That's it for the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
All forms of violence which occurs in domestic settings can be termed domestic violence. It includes intimate partner violence, child abuse, elder abuse, or abuse by any member of a household. It affects thousands of people in Jamaica and across the world. The Pan American Health Organization PAHO says incidences of domestic violence have increased during the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll be exploring the issue in the following Living Healthy report.
Domestic violence can cause physical and emotional pain to the survivor and their loved ones. The latest PAHO data shows that Jamaica has recorded nearly 30,000 domestic violence reports since 2019, and since 2020, reports of physical and sexual violence have increased. PAHO advisor Britta Monica Bear delved into the issue at a recent PAHO journalists exchange.
We know that this is an ongoing challenge in the region. We know, for example, that about 1 in 3 women experience in their lifetime physical and or sexual violence by an intimate partner. And that holds across different countries and in the region as a whole. So we already have a large group of people that are affected by violence before the pandemic has even started.
I feel like I want to kill you.
Femicide, defined as a homicide in which the victim is a woman or a girl. Most victims of domestic violence are female. The Jamaica Constabulary Force reports an average murder rate for women as 13 per 100,000 females, higher than the 10 murders per 100,000 threshold for epidemics established by the World Health Authority. And with the COVID-19 pandemic forcing people to stay home, the risk of increase is higher.
We are living in a situation where there's more stress, more anxiety, potentially greater abuse of alcohol, drugs, a greater burden of domestic tasks on women in families, school closures, high risks of losing jobs or other economic or social worries. All of this are potential risk factors that can increase the chance of violence happening.
Ms. Bear says that at the same time, protective factors against violence are being reduced, such as less contact with family and friends, less access to health and protection services, closure of schools, leisure activities, etc. People are spending more time at home.
And for many, that home is not a safe place. This is why we are particularly concerned with the topic of domestic violence, violence in the home right now. And while we don't have new or updated prevalence data in the context of an emergency such as this one, we do have, or we can often in many countries or settings look at administrative data that give us an idea of service use, for example, increases in help seeking, increases in calls to helplines, increases in reports to the police that suggest a potential increase in risk or a potential increase in demand for support, and that makes us very worried. At the same time, we also see in other locations in other countries sometimes pauses in these kind of help seeking, pauses in the number of calls or reductions in the number of calls or reductions in the number of service users. And that makes us equally worried. It doesn't mean that violence reduces, it means that there will likely be more disruptions in the number of support services or new access barrier for survivors in needed support. So while we don't have prevalence data, we can draw on prevalence data before the pandemic that give us an idea of context. We can use administrative data, data on helplines of services to give us an idea of the scale of the challenge.
This is the time we should all be even more determined to live healthy in mind, body, and spirit, and ensure that our most vulnerable are not left behind. We must focus on violence against women, children, and elderly persons in the home. Look out for child abuse, neglect, and child marriage, physical abuse, sexual and emotional abuse against the most vulnerable.
In the context of COVID-19, where we have less direct contact, for example, due to school closures or due to remote working or due to disruptions in services and closures of businesses and shops and all of the different ways that COVID-19 has affected our lives, it also means that violence is even more invisible. It makes it even harder to identify survivors, to reach survivors and understand about the topic.
If you or someone you know needs support, call the police Or you can contact the Bureau of Gender Affairs at 876-754-8576. You can call Jamaicans for Justice at 876-615-5023 or 876-615-5024. Or you can email them at complaints@jamaicans4justice.org. This has been your Living Healthy report.
In regional news, a human rights attorney based in St. Lucia has called on policymakers to scrap capital punishment from the law books. Mary Francis sounded the call ahead of the observance of World Day Against the Death Penalty on October 10.
World Day Against the Death Penalty was observed on Saturday, October 10. It is a day dedicated to the abolition of death penalty and to raise awareness of the conditions and circumstances which affect prisoners with death sentences. St. Lucia last carried out the death penalty in 1995. The life sentences for approximately 19 inmates have been reduced to serving life at the Bodley Correctional Facility. Human rights attorney Mary Francis said the first fundamental right is the right to life. Francis acknowledged most St. Lucians appear to support capital punishment for the act of murder.
Persons who advocate for the abolition of death penalty are actually trying to promote human rights with all its passions, because without life, there is no human rights. That is the fundamental number one human right. When it goes, there is no other human rights. And the human rights are interdependent, they're indivisible. You cannot compartmentalize human rights into civil rights, the police freedom, and so forth.
Francis observed that the Caribbean is one of the areas where the death penalty is on the statute books. She emphasized the need to educate citizens on the significance of life as the most important human rights.
The fact that the law is into the book shows that there is some obstinacy in the minds of the political directorate to actually remove this legislation or to abolish the capital punishment, because they probably worried about the reprisal, maybe the populace might probably repercussions on the chances of being elected or remaining in office.
In light of the high murder rates in St. Lucia and the Caribbean, Francis has called on the social issues to be addressed. The coordinator of the National Center for Legal Aid and Human Rights asserted that government should also be showing that the sanctity of life is important. Cecil Actil, NBC Prime.
Tobago is reporting an increase in mental health issues. This from the head of the mental health department at the Scarborough General Hospital during a media briefing on COVID-19 matters on the island. Crystal Wilson of TTT News has more in this report.
There's an increase in depression and cases of anxiety among members of the public and medical staff in Tobago as the island, along with the rest of the world, continues to combat the spread of COVID-19. This according to head of the mental health department at the Scarborough General Hospital, Dr. Srinivasulu Malakunta. Dr. Malakunta, during a media briefing held by the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, explained the latest trend is deeply concerning.
We are seeing a lot of anxiety disorders, which is ranging from mild symptoms to even disorder itself. And we're also seeing a lot of depression, because any stress can provoke some kind of chemical balance in our brain, so it can give symptoms of depression that could range from symptoms of depression to a full-blown clinical depression.
While the island is reporting a significant decrease in infection rates for September, epidemiology specialist Dr. Bridget Smith said people between 25 to 29 years old are among those most affected by COVID-19 in Tobago.
But we have seen from our investigations, we have noted that younger persons who are out and about in society mingling take the virus back to their elderly loved ones at home.
And the Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Councillor Tracy Davidson-Celestin, said Tobago's health sector remains focused on improving performance and quality management.
Some of our priority areas for the fiscal period, apart from performance management and treating with quality management issues, would be holistically the continuation of the decentralization of healthcare services, and we will do that by completing and operationalizing the Mariah Health Center, and of course the Roxborough Hospital located in Roxborough, Tobago.
Ms. Davidson-Celestin also announced there will be no budget cuts to any areas of Tobago's health sector. Crystal Wilson, TTT News.
In sports, we begin play with netball. When the Sunshine Girls square off against England for the upcoming 3-test series, they will be without their star goal shooter, Janelle Fowler. According to sources, Fowler has written to Netball Jamaica, advising them that due to personal reasons, she will not be available for the series, which will be played at the Copper Box Arena in London from December 1 to 6. In the meantime, head coach Connie Francis says that veteran shooter Romelda Akins will be added to the 12-member squad. And over to football, as Juventus star Cristiano Ronaldo has become the latest international football star to test positive for COVID-19. On Tuesday, the Portuguese Football Federation confirmed that Ronaldo was doing well and had no symptoms after he tested positive while with his country's national team. He was in isolation and was dropped from the country's Nations League match against Sweden set for Wednesday in Lisbon. Ronaldo was one of the most prolific goal scorers in the sport's history and has earned over 160 caps. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.